It often begins like any other story, doesn't it? A glance, a smile, a connection. For her, let's call her Sarah. Life in its early bloom held the promise of warmth, of companionship. She was young, perhaps a little naive, drawn to a certain kind of intensity. The man who would cast such a long, dark shadow over her life, let's call him Michael, possessed that in spades. Their initial courtship, friends would later recall, had an edge to it, a spark that flickered between passion and something more volatile. Was it a premonition, or just the wisdom of hindsight, coloring those early days in shades of gray and red? No one could say for sure. He was her ex-boyfriend, a chapter she thought, perhaps hoped, was closed. Life has a funny way of reopening old wounds, doesn't it? Or, in this case, old chapters. Michael was not a man easily forgotten, nor one to be easily dismissed. He lingered in the periphery of her world, a constant low hum of unresolved tension. Sarah, in the meantime, had moved on, or so it seemed. She found a new love, a new relationship, a chance to build something different, something possibly safer. But the past, as it so often does, was patiently waiting its turn, biding its time for a devastating re-entry. The new boyfriend, let's name him David, was by all accounts a steadying presence. He was kind, dependable, the sort of man a woman might build a future with. They were happy, or so the narrative went, but happiness can be a fragile thing, especially when a figure like Michael lurks in the background. Did Sarah ever truly feel free? Did she glance over her shoulder, wondering if he was watching? These are the questions that haunt the edges of this tragic tale, questions that may never find their answers. The quiet streets they walked, the laughter they shared, it all existed under an unspoken threat. Michael's presence wasn't just a memory. It was an active, unsettling force. He was the ex who wouldn't quite exit the stage. Perhaps it was obsession, perhaps a possessiveness that curdled into something far more dangerous. Whatever the twisted roots of his feelings, they were about to bear the bitterest fruit. The stage was being set, meticulously, quietly, for an act of violence that would shatter lives and leave behind a legacy of sorrow. A storm was gathering, and Sarah unknowingly was standing directly in its path, a path paved with a love that was anything but simple. The night it happened, the air was likely still, ordinary. Then, chaos erupted. It wasn't a random act, no, this was planned. An ambush. Michael, the ex-boyfriend, the one who couldn't let go, had orchestrated it all. Sarah was there with David, her current love. Imagine the terror, the sudden, sharp realization that your worst fears were not just real, but lethally present. Shots rang out, shattering the night, shattering lives. When the echoes faded, David lay dead. A life extinguished in a brutal flash of jealousy and rage. Sarah somehow survived the physical onslaught. But the scars, oh, the scars would run deeper than any bullet wound. The police moved quickly. Michael was apprehended. The evidence, it seemed, was there. He was the architect of this horror, the man who had allegedly turned a quiet evening into a bloodbath. He was in custody, behind bars, where many thought he belonged, for a very long time. Justice, it appeared, was on its course. For Sarah, the survivor, the witness, the path ahead seemed clear. Tell her story, ensure the man who had ripped her life apart would face the consequences. That's what everyone expected. That's what usually happens. But this story was already veering off the well-trodden path of predictability. Then came the twist, a decision that baffled investigators and stunned those who knew her. Sarah declined to testify. The reasons remained shrouded in a fog of speculation. Was it fear? Had Michael, even from behind bars, managed to exert some unseen influence, some terrifying threat? Or was it something else? Something more complex and harder to understand? A misplaced sense of loyalty, a manipulation so profound it warped her judgment? Whatever the cause, her silence spoke volumes. It was a silence that would unlock a cell door, a silence that would change everything yet again. Just 2 weeks later, Michael walked free. The man accused of murder, of orchestrating a deadly ambush, was back on the streets. All because the key witness, the surviving victim, chose not to speak against him. The system, for all its checks and balances, can be profoundly impacted by the choices of a single individual. And Sarah's choice, born of reasons we may never fully grasp, set in motion the next, even more tragic act of this devastating play. The man who had taken one life from her was now free to re-enter hers, a prospect that chilled many to the bone. What happens when the monster under your bed not only gets out, but you invite him to stay? After Michael's release, an event that defied all logic for onlookers, the story took an even more bewildering turn. Sarah, the woman who had survived his alleged murderous rage, the woman whose boyfriend had been killed in an ambush he orchestrated, did the unthinkable. She married him. Yes, married him. The man who had, by all appearances, tried to end her world. It's a decision that hangs heavy in the air, a question mark etched into the very fabric of this tragedy. What could possibly lead to such a union? Years passed. Against this backdrop of a violent past and a perplexing present, a child was born. A symbol of new life, perhaps, a fragile hope for normalcy in a relationship founded on anything but. Did they find moments of peace? Did the routines of family life, the school runs, the birthday parties, the quiet evenings, manage to paper over the deep, dark cracks in their foundation? Or was there always an undercurrent, a silent tension? A memory of that terrible night lingering in every room, in every glance exchanged between them. One can only imagine the weight of such a history. Living with a past like theirs must have been a constant negotiation with fear, with memory, with the unspoken. Did she ever look at him and see the man from the ambush? Did he ever look at her and remember the chaos he had unleashed? These are the chilling questions that whisper through the narrative of their married life. For years, they maintained this facade, this life together, a life that must have been, for Sarah at least, a tightrope walk over a chasm of past trauma. The world saw a family, but beneath the surface, the old currents of control and danger may have still been swirling. The birth of their child added another layer of complexity, another soul tethered to this deeply fractured bond. A child who would grow up in the shadow of this unspoken, unexorcised demon. Did Sarah believe that marriage, that a child could somehow redeem Michael, could transform him? Or was she trapped in a way that no one on the outside could truly comprehend? The years they spent together as husband and wife, as parents, were ticking down, leading not to a peaceful resolution, but towards a final, brutal reckoning with the violence that had always been there, dormant but never truly gone. The illusion of a life rebuilt, however fragile, however improbable, was destined to shatter. After years of marriage, years of raising a child together, the simmering darkness that had always defined their connection finally boiled over. An argument. That's how it reportedly began, like countless disagreements in countless homes. But this was no ordinary home, and this was no ordinary relationship. The specifics of that final dispute remain clouded, as these things often do. What is tragically clear, however, is its horrifying culmination. The argument escalated, and Michael, her husband, the father of her child, the man she had once refused to testify against, killed her. The very man she had, in a baffling turn of events, chosen to marry after he had allegedly murdered her previous boyfriend in an ambush she survived, now became her own killer. The cycle of violence, which had seemed to pause or perhaps go underground, completed its vicious turn. The promises of marriage, the shared history, the bond of parenthood, none of it was enough to save her. He who had walked free years before due to her silence, now silenced her forever. It's a betrayal so profound, it leaves one speechless, grappling for understanding in a landscape of utter devastation. The news, when it broke, sent ripples of shock and a grim, knowing sorrow. For those who remembered the ambush, the release, the inexplicable marriage, this final act, while horrifying, perhaps felt like an inevitable conclusion to a story steeped in danger and flawed choices. One cannot help but think of the child, the innocent life caught in this terrible vortex. A child who will now navigate the world without a mother, and with the chilling knowledge that their father was responsible for her absence. The weight of that truth is a burden no child should ever have to bear. And so the story ends, not with a resolution, but with a raw, open wound. It's a stark reminder of the complexities of human relationships, the hidden currents of fear and control, and the devastating consequences when love becomes entangled with violence. Sarah's life, marked by such dramatic and terrifying turns, serves as a somber testament to a path chosen that ultimately led to the darkest of destinations. The questions linger, heavy and unanswered, in the silence she left behind. A silence far more permanent than the one that once set her killer free.